Welcome to Face2Face. This is a show about change and about what's next. It's a show that wants to ask questions, peel back the layers of our average everyday experience, and go beyond scratching the surface. We interview amazing people with incredible ideas and stories who have done wild, weird, and wonderful things. Remember that imagination shared creates collaboration, and collaboration creates community, and community inspires social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face2Face. So my next interview is with Liz Marshall, and we talk about her compelling, brilliant, and engaging new film, Meet the Future, and that's Meet, M-E-A-T. This is a film where you can find out more information, by the way, at meetthefuture.com or lizmars.com, Liz Marshall's website. Check both of those out for more information. But this is what Liz would call a solution-focused story, and I love that about this film. I love that about documentary film. This goes all the way back to Liz as an 8-year-old, and that comes out in our conversation, and you're going to hear a little bit more about that. This is about the environment. This is about climate change. This is about a more sustainable world. This is about cell-based culture. It's about meat. It's about farming. It's about how we kind of actually live on one massive or in one massive farm, on one massive farm, I guess you could say. Imagine that drone shot, right? The world as a farm. But this is about, as somebody says in the film, I think her name is Michaela, she says, separating the animal from meat making. And it's a fascinating story. It's about entrepreneurship, it's about business, and about so many things. So stay tuned. We get into ethical conversations and about how somebody from the Good Food Institute actually says maybe we got to take ethics off the table in order to get people thinking about what a more cell-based culture might look like when it comes to talking about things like meat. So stay tuned. Coming right up, Meet the Future with Liz Marshall. If you want more information about my speaking and my writing, davidpecklive.com. You can head there. You can also buy a copy of Real Change is Incremental. I would love it if you do that. You can also find out more information about the podcasting that I'm up to at face2facelive.ca. So many interviews there to choose from. Please leave us a review on iTunes. I've got a contest coming up. I'm just still not sure what that's going to look like yet. But if in the meantime you can leave a 4 or 5 star review would be brilliant. A little comment there. We'd love that. Social mediate us, get word out on the street about Face2Face, sign up for the newsletter. We send something out on a monthly basis. Send it to your friends. You can also advertise here with us as well. Shout outs on the interviews themselves, in the newsletters, and of course online at face2facelive.ca. And if you can't do any of that, you can also support us through Patreon. So we'd appreciate that. We're loving what we do here. We're over 500 interviews now. It's crazy talk, but we're still going strong. And I am going to be stepping into more conversations over the next, here's to the next 500 interviews. How's that? And don't forget rabble.ca as well for a whole host of other writers and journalists and thinkers and podcasters, people who are bloggers who are peeling back layers and stepping into it. News for the rest of us. That's rabble.ca. But don't touch that dial, because coming right up is Liz Marshall and I having a great conversation talking about her new film, Meet the Future. Well, welcome to Face2Face. We're joined by a very special guest here with us today. We have Liz Marshall from Liz Mars Films, lizmars.com, talking today about her new film, Meet the Future, and that's M-E-A-T, Meet the Future. Liz, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's so great. So wonderful film. Thank you for that. Congratulations. I know it's coming out on CBC very soon. I'm going to be at Hot Docs, which is all online, and I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But hey, wonderful film. A bit of a game changer, I think. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a labor of love.
I bet. I mean, I've been interviewing documentarians for quite a few years, and I haven't heard many say that over the years, but I would imagine most would probably agree.
Yeah, because documentary as an art form, as a practice, is, you have to roll your sleeves up and really sink in and dive in and dig deep and persevere and stick with it for years sometimes. And so with this story, Meet the Future, I was able to secure the unique behind-the-scenes privileged kind of access needed to tell this kind of story in 2016. And so that's when we started filming. And then we filmed for 3.5 years. So our final shoot was in the fall of 2019.
So, it's interesting. I love that you say you had this unique behind the scenes access. You talk, I've seen it, you've mentioned it before we had hit the record button, but this idea of being solution focused, you wanted a solution focused story. How do you start with a story like this? How do you get that access in a sense? Like, is it an ethical sort of moment where you go, you know what? I got to make a film about this, or you've read this article, or you saw a piece on I don't know, probably not Fox News, but you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you have to trust your instincts because I had a shiver about it.
Wow.
And it was, of course, there was no way of predicting where the story would go.
Right.
There was no way of knowing the rapid progression that lay ahead. There was no way of understanding at that particular point, which is 2016, that there would be tremendous acceleration or that the timeliness and urgency of the topic would only increase as we now face COVID-19 as a global health emergency. So I am a believer in the timing of things. And I think that Meet the Future being released now in this current climate, but also in 2020 is perfect in so many ways.
So just like and I'm sure we're going to talk about Uma Valetti, sort of the one of the guys behind this. There's so many people involved, and scientists and all kinds of different. We got venture capitalists and politicians and lobbyists, I suppose. There's so many who are a part of this, but this story itself is very much about. It seems to me about an entrepreneurial spirit. But also, what I love about it is that you draw out this notion, this idea that it's rooted in this man's childhood memories, where he had this, talk about trusting your instincts, right? So I wonder, would you say that as a documentarian, you share that a little bit? Like, is there an entrepreneurial documentarian sort of voice to this type of a film? Because I would think that this will be seen as a bit of a prophetic piece down the road.
Well, that's great to hear. So for me, I like to center social issue documentaries around the human story, the human experience, to provide an emotional center or to capture the essence of a story through a journey, an active unfolding storyline that a person can anchor the experience for an audience. And that through that as an entry point, we can tackle and explore and illuminate big questions, big, urgent, needed dialogue questions and issues. So securing the unique access to Uma Valetti and his small team of scientists and researchers back in 2016 was like the first essential step. I also should say that so that window, that door was opened to me through a friend of mine. His name is Bruce Friedrich, and he's the co-founder and executive director of the Good Food Institute, which is it's a nonprofit dedicated to the acceleration of the clean and plant-based meat industries in America. They're based out of Washington, D.C. And I phoned him in 2015 when I was actively searching for what my next film would be. I knew that he had just launched his sort of a new chapter of his career trajectory as a longtime animal protection advocate activist. And so I was curious about learning about the Good Food Institute. And then he opened the door for me to learn more about this topic. And then he introduced me to Uma. And so
love how that when you look back and you connect those dots, love that, how it starts with, the phone call, the conversation.
I know, me too.
Wonderful.
I love that part. And there's an element of, you're directing that process, you're being directed. It's both. It's like you are the archer and you're the arrow at the same time. And just trusting in that process and then arriving at, okay, this is about the emergence of, or the birth of this industry, a new revolutionary concept that is not only a concept, but it's underway. So Uma's startup company that he co-founded in 2015 is called Memphis Meats. And Uma's a really interesting story. I like his story because he was born and raised in Vijayawada, India. That's in South India. And really passionate, focused, intelligent, interesting guy. He ended up emigrating to the United States, and he's a Mayo Clinic trained cardiologist. And he ended up having a successful career as a cardiologist, but he took this very risky, passion-driven career turn and founded Memphis Meats, the company, the startup company, in 2015, because of his moral compass. And so in the film, we follow him back to India to
home.
Understand his. Yeah, we go there with his wonderful his wife Mrinalini, who's an incredible woman, and his partner in life, and we meet his family. And we understand in the film his formative memories and his roots, his upbringing, and how he was shaped, and why and what those memories are that shaped who he is today, and why he's doing what he's doing. So for me, when it came to this topic in this film, I was, of course, really fascinated with the science, the technology, the business. All these pillars of the story are important, but at the center of it, the human story, what motivates the people that are moving the needle forward, that are birthing this industry. Who are they? What are the moral underpinnings, the social issue underpinnings, and why is this important? That is what motivates me, and that's what motivated me to follow this.
So many things to say, and I so love that that's what you've done, is you sort of focused on the one to tell a story to the many, and it's kind of to represent the globe, as it were, in a sense, it seems to me. And I love that it's South meets North. I really do. That this man was born and raised in India, comes west, and is now kind of teaching all of us what might be the next best step and the next best way forward. I think it's brilliant. And by the way, I know I've already congratulated you on the film, but I am without a doubt a step or two closer to becoming a vegetarian. My daughter is. She's quite committed. She's 12. She saw. We were at the ROM, the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, and there was an exhibition, a photographic exhibition, and we saw some shark fins, and it might even have been connected to Rob Stewart and shark water, and she was just, shark fins that have been cut off, obviously, from sharks, and the moment that she had, that memory, that moment has stuck with her in such a big way. Talk about an epiphany, and I think Uma talks about that a little bit too, doesn't he? He talks about how he's celebrating a birthday, and then on the other side of the wall they were killing chickens, and he says that memory had stuck with him so much that it just, it changed everything for him, right? You talked about his moral compass, and anyway, it's fascinating that you've been able to bring all of that out. I think for me, the notion that we live on one gigantic farm, separated by water, I think was the quote or the line at one point. is kind
yes.
of a mind-boggling thought. And so, yes, of course, this is about good food. It's about cell-based culture, I guess, and making meat. What was the line by Michaela? Separating the animal from meat making. I so love that, by the way, Liz. But when you start to look at the implications, so the film's about this really incredible new technology, but hang on a minute here. This is about so much more. You start with these beautiful environmental establishing shots. This is about the environment. It's about climate. It's about poverty. It's about. Can you talk about the connected nature of the film? Does that make sense?
It absolutely, it makes sense, and what you're talking about right now is why I'm so excited about this topic, because the subject of the industrial production of meat that is feeding most of the world, because most of the world still eats meat. And when we break that down, we have to unpack that to understand, okay, what does that mean? What are the implications of this? So animal agriculture takes up roughly 45% of the global ice-free surface area.
Wow.
So 45% of land, roughly. And it's upwards of 100 billion land animals that are raised and slaughtered annually worldwide for food.
Did you say 100 billion?
100 billion, yes.
Wow, yeah, that's just
upwards of 100 billion. And then meat consumption indicators suggest that as developing economies grow and as populations increase, that meat consumption is expected to double by 2050 as we approach sort of 9.8 billion people on the planet. Meat consumption is expected to double by 2050. I had to say that twice because I think it's an important thing to underscore. So the current method of getting meat to the plate is unsustainable, and for so many reasons. And I think the reason that I'm really passionate about the topic of meat production and is because it's a convergence of everything I care about. It's about it impacts the environment, it impacts human health, it impacts human lives, it impacts animal lives and animal health, and so. And then, of course, that topic, that subject matter of the benchmark of 2050 and needing viable solutions to feed the world, because everyone needs protein. It's also true that in high-income countries, research is showing that meat consumption could be halved, so could be, significantly reduced due to advocacy and effective systemic change. But ultimately what we're looking at is that meat consumption is on the rise. It continues to be on the rise. And the meat industry itself knows that it needs to innovate and invest in viable, solution-oriented, answers for these issues moving into the future. So that's part of the story, is that while some people might think that this is a startup story about disruptors that are against the villain of the meat industry, and that it's a good guy versus bad guy story, and that it's a David and Goliath sort of paradigm, that's just not how this story is told. and it's not told like that because that's not the story.
Yeah, you get way more of a sense of even. I love the whole scene about the letter and him scribbling on the letter to Trump, and how these two sort of disparate groups come together. And doesn't Uma at some point say, "Who would have thought I would have been writing a letter like this?" When you have these two different groups coming together to say, we've got to make some changes here. We've got to turn this upside. What's the quote from Bill Gates? How do we square this circle?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Bill Gates and Richard Branson, they're both, known as billionaire influencers that invest in our future. They are forward thinkers, looking to prescient ideas, and they've both invested in Uma's company, Memphis Meats, and so has Cargill and Tyson and other stakeholders within the meat industry and other mission-driven investors. And I mean, it's who Uma becomes and who he is over the course of the film, and the trajectory, and following and charting his rise in prominence as a visionary, as a pioneer, as a CEO. And that is really a device, I think, in filmmaking, where when you can have a really interesting protagonist, like human subject to follow, he or she becomes like a portal to express so much more. So in the case of Meet the Future, the film, it was always the intention that it would be immersive and intimate with one company, not a survey where we're jumping around talking to a whole bunch of companies. But it's a stand-in for all the others. So it's really a microcosm to represent the birth of the industry at large.
And Liz, is Uma really that much of a nice guy?
Oh, he's a nice guy.
He really comes across that way. You capture just a real, I don't know, team player, and I don't mean that in a sort of a trite corporate way, but he embraces, and he's always smiling in the film, and he seems very passionately committed to this. This isn't just about when you had, I think the FDA shows up at one point in the film, and they want, I think somebody asked them the question about it, do you guys want the US to be first, and they answer, of course, yes. You don't get that sense from Uma's in this for the collective sort of good, or at least that's the sense I got.
Yeah, he's laser focused and really passionate and really careful about every step.
Right.
You see that he's growing his team and accelerating at a fairly rapid pace, but that's not done like in a careless way. Everything is so meticulous, and he really is a believer in his big tent philosophy of working with all stakeholders, working together to create solutions and to move things forward.
Is it gonna work? I mean, it sure looks that way. I mean, you start out, I think what is it, $18,000 a pound to create cell-based meat, or and they're very particular too. I found that really interesting in the film about how no, this isn't cell-based meat. This is meat, right? Like it might be. There's and I love that nomenclature. It's all about the language, and the packaging comes out near the end, and safety and truth. What was the phrase? Truthful labeling, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, and I guess I'm dying to ask you, did you taste any? Did you have some of that duck or chicken or whatever it was?
Everyone asks me.
Yeah, I bet.
Yes, I did. I actually did a post on social media.
Oh, cool.
We put a post out yesterday. There's an image of me and the team, John and Chris, my sound and camera team. We all had the opportunity to try it. And there's a photo and then me talking about it. I talk about it in a podcast the other day. So yes, I tried it, and I made it clear that I don't eat meat for ethical reasons. I stopped eating meat 30 years ago.
Wow.
And I did not have any ethical question or dilemma around trying this meat. No. And, people have also asked me whether I will become a meat eater when this is on the market. And the answer is, well, I don't need to eat meat, but
Right.
I don't have an issue at all with this meat, ethically speaking.
So can we go back 35 years, because there's something I want to ask you about that might just be connected. I'm pretty sure I saw it on your website. Did I see a letter that you wrote to Pierre Trudeau
in the 70s? Yeah,
when you were 8 years old, and basically saying, no more. Let's put some money towards people who are vulnerable and stop spending money on guns. Is that the message of the letter?
Yes.
Yeah. So is there any connection to that 8-year-old and this woman who said no to meat? Probably not that long after.
I think that's such a great question to make the equation there, because that's how, for me, politically, socially, spiritually, for me, they're totally connected.
Right. Violence
is violence. Injustice is injustice, period. So yes. Well, I don't think as an 8-year-old, I was eating meat and enjoying it, but I didn't know the connections then.
Right. Well, it's interesting that I think it's Uma talks about the childhood memories, of course, or maybe it was his partner who was, I believe, an animal farmer, and he used the phrase "sent them to slaughter," and you could almost see Nicholas. You could see the shift in his body language as he was talking about that. Like this is not just about entrepreneurship. This isn't about big business here. This was rooted in an ethical decision. And yet later in the film, I think you bring out somebody who basically says, yeah, you know what? Most people aren't going to be ethically concerned about this. They just want good meat that's not too expensive. Right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's really, it fascinates me, Liz, that so here's this 8-year-old writing this letter. How come you at 8 was, whoa, that's pretty good English. How come you at 8 were writing that letter and I wasn't? Do you know what I mean? Like, it just fascinates me, right?
It is. It's true. And we can speculate.
Of course.
But yeah. I think those seeds were planted for me early on because I grew up in a family of activists and socially conscious-minded, active citizens. My mother is an active person to this day. She's never changed around that. Her commitment to social justice is a huge part of what shapes her own identity.
Right.
But I think so. When you are nurtured within an environment that fosters that kind of awareness, I think it's just sort of becomes part of your. It becomes part of your world to think about things like war,
right? To ask
privilege,
deeper questions.
To ask deeper questions and to think about things like privilege.
Right.
So for me, it's been an ongoing part of my own development and growth and expansion, and I just naturally have brought it to my work.
I think it was Bruce, wasn't it? Bruce from the Good Food Institute, who said ethical decisions aren't really going to come into it for most people, and that's
that's based on a lot of research,
right?
Huge amounts of research, because so what Bruce says there is quite interesting. He said the mission and focus of the Good Food Institute that he co-founded in 2015 is to take ethics off the table and to focus on accelerating the birth of the cell-based meat industry and the plant-based meat industries, to ensure that these products are everywhere, because when they've done the research, it shows that consumers are, they're looking for three things, ultimately. They're looking for taste, So does it taste good? Does it taste like meat? They're looking for price points. So is it affordable? Meaning, is it, accessible? And then they're looking for, accessibility.
Right.
So is it conveniently, can I find it?
Right. Do I have to drive to Whole Foods to get it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do I get it?
Right.
So that's based on a lot of research, and that's just, yeah.
Does it concern you at all that not that Bruce said it, but that it seems like we have to take ethics off the table in order to get here?
I feel sad about humanity at large. That I guess I'm still part of a minority that cares about animals. Who cares about animals, and not my pet, not wildlife, but cares about the animals that are in factory farms, that are used for food production en masse, or the animals that are enslaved in other industries. And my last film, The Ghosts in Our Machine, which was released in 2013, is really a meditation on all of that big moral question and dilemma, because they've also done the research, and across the board, I think it's something like 95%, something like that, something huge, that people love animals. But we wear blinders, and there's things, so it's complex.
Is that's cognitive dissonance, right? I mean, that's the paradox.
It is.
We humans are we're walking contradictions. We really truly are a bit of a mess, really, right? When it comes down to those disconnections and those inconsistencies, it just doesn't make any sense. But I think we are, even some of the drone images you have of those farms, I don't think I've ever seen images quite like that before. I mean, it's astounding.
Great. And I think, it's important to me, and it's important for this film, that there is a measured tone around addressing this topic, because, like I mentioned earlier, this is nuanced. This is complicated. Everyone needs to eat. Everyone needs protein. The world is expanding. Populations are growing. And most people eat meat. So we need solutions that are achievable, that are realistic. And we need solutions coming at us from many angles.
Right.
And this is one solution. There's no such thing as the solution. There's lots of solutions. This is one sort of revolutionary, game-changing, big idea solution that has arrived and that is underway. And Meet the Future is the film, is the story, the exclusive story about the birth of this industry.
Yeah, to working towards a world without slaughter was another. I think it was a quote from one of the montages in the film. We're going to wrap it up here in a couple of minutes. Sadly, this is the kind of conversation, Liz, that this is the stuff great philosophy and ethics classes are made of. It seems to me. So I do hope your film is seen by everyone, and it's the kind of thing I really do believe it has that prophetic edge to it that students are going to be writing about this for some time. Did you know that, as far as I know, Ingrid Newkirk, one of the founders of PETA, I believe, was affected by the reading of Animal Liberation, which was written in the 70s by a philosopher, Peter Singer, whose work had a huge impact on me when he wrote an essay back in the 70s called Famine, Affluence, and Morality. I don't know if you remember that paper or if you ever read it. But I hope somebody's writing that down right now as they listen to it and are interested in enough to go back and look at it. I think the reason I bring that up is just that it really is about those little things, those incremental steps. Yes, of course, change can happen at a macro level as well, but it's about stepping into it. I love how Casey describes what one burger per person a week in San Francisco is going to do, right? And the way you
it's
bring
I know.
it's
That's a
mind-boggling.
it is mind-boggling, and it's a great equation, the way that she breaks it down like that. It's really, I love that moment.
Well, not so for me, stories can be solution focused, but our lives can be solution focused too, right? If
we
we're
can all
intentional.
make decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, no, it's wow, so great chatting with you today. I really do feel like we could keep this one going, and perhaps we will get an opportunity at another time. Hey, let's talk a little bit about what's next. So the film's going to be on CBC Gem by the time people hear this, for sure, but it's also going to be released at Hot Docs Online this year, and later in May, I believe, about 135 films online. People can find out more about it. Just interrupt me here if you want. Meetthefuture.com. Find out more about you at Liz Mars, LIZMARS.com. Anything else you can tell us about what's next and what you might want us to, how to step into this in a more intentional way?
Yeah, I would say, we're starting to ramp up our social media presence. And I feel the responsibility and see the role of documentary being that, you have your film, which is linear based time entity. You lock it, you deliver it, and and then it is seen, and our job is to make sure there's tons of exposure, that it gets out there to the rest of the world, that it's versioned in multiple languages, and we'll do this. We're working on it.
Nice.
So people outside of Canada are wondering, well, when can I see this film? Well, we don't know exactly just yet, but it's coming.
So, oh, that's good news.
Hang in there. Follow us on our social media platforms. Check out our website. Subscribe to our quarterly newsletter from our website, meetthefuture.com. And, keep your finger sort of on the pulse of what we're doing. But also, I encourage everyone to learn more about this topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look it up on the internet. You'll just, there's so much to learn. And we are devising an impact campaign that will be a companion to the film, that will live organically online as part of our educational, social impact strategy, really.
Yeah, that's great.
To attract and to foster as much dialogue around this as possible, to open hearts and minds to the miracle of what is possible. And to answer questions and make things accessible for people, to demystify the science, the technology, the concept, also to instill a sense of awe and wonder. Because this is really, in our human evolution, this is the natural next step. We've needed innovative tools and thinking and technology to get us where we are. And now we need exactly tools, innovation, and technology to get us out of the mess that we're in. And this is human evolution. That's what this is.
I love how you bring liquid handling robots into the equation as well. Just for the record, you know what I also love. It's not just a film. It's not just an impact campaign. Not just a story. But I love how I think you look to Uma's wife, and she says something about, this isn't just about this product. This is about the future and how that's going to look. And that's what I so love about Meet the Future, and clearly about the work you've been doing, and goes all the way back to That letter you wrote at 8 years old, that's just fantastic. I love that part of this story. Liz, thank you so much for your time today. We've been talking to Liz Marshall about her new film, Meet the Future, coming soon to a digital theater near you. It'll be at Hot Docs. You can see it on CBC documentary channel, Gem, and hopefully everywhere in the not-so-distant future. Really, really appreciate your time today, Liz.
Oh, right on. It was great to meet you and to talk to you.